Hi everyone, Aaron here for Zollotech, and this is the iPhone 12 Pro Max. I've been using it for about a month now. It's been out to the public a little bit less than that, but I've been using it full time for about that amount of time. Now, before we go any further, this video is in HDR, so make sure you're watching it on the YouTube app on an iPhone, or if you're on a Mac, make sure you're not using Chrome. Instead, use Safari since it will show up properly. So if you have an HDR display, you'll see it. If not, you'll just see what looks like normal video. So Apple TV, it should work fine as well. And so, like I said, it's 4K HDR, and hopefully you're seeing the 4K resolution. It does take a little bit of time for YouTube to process that, but in general, the camera looks amazing, and it's recording from an iPhone 12 Pro. Now, this particular phone, like I said, I've been using it for a month, and I absolutely love it. In fact, every time I pick it up, because of the squared off edges, it just feels a little bit more premium to me than the previous generation. Now, this is going to be very subjective, and not everyone's going to feel this way, but because I've been wanting these squared off edges for so long to come back since the 4, 4S, 5, and 5S, now we have it with the premium line of phones, the 12 and 12 Pro Max, and all of the new lineup. So I really appreciate the overall squared off design. The stainless steel is holding up well. I don't have a single mark on it, but it is a fingerprint magnet. So if you're not using a case or anything like that, then it will definitely show a lot of fingerprints, especially if you're using anything other than, I guess, the silver phone. The darker the phone, it seems to be a little bit more of a fingerprint magnet. Now, the nice thing is the frame overall really seems to protect the display. So this particular display doesn't have a single scratch on it, and I'm not using a case or a screen protector. I prefer the overall texture and feel of the glass and the back, and I'm not using a case full time anyway, and it seems to hold up really well. I've had no issues whatsoever with it, and the iPhone 12 seems to have a couple scratches on it for some reason. My 12 Pro Max does not, and I think one of the reasons is I'm careful with it, but the other thing is the screen does not protrude past the frame of the phone, so it doesn't stick up over the edge like it does on the 11 Pro Max. So I've had zero scratches. I'm very careful with it either way, but I don't drop my phones or anything, but it's held up extremely well. Although this did fall behind my nightstand when I was trying to put it on the MagSafe Duo charger, and it doesn't have a scratch on it, and it fell onto a carpet about a foot away, so it's not that big of a deal, but in general it's held up well. I have no scratches on the lenses or anything like that, even though they protrude out a little bit further than I'd like. You'll see they stick up above the top of the lenses, so even with that, they seem to hold up really well, and I've had no complaints as far as that part goes. Now, as far as the display overall, it looks great. It's bright in sunlight. It is turned all the way up, so as you can see, it's all the way up, and it does use PWM. I've mentioned this before, but that's not really much of an issue for me with this phone. It seems to be at a high enough rate, it doesn't bother my eyes at all. I've only heard from a few people that say that it still bothers their eyes on any of the iPhone 12 series, so it seems to be holding up really well, and in general, it's just fantastic when it comes to that. So it seems like no issues there. The display is great. It's bright and great for watching video. If you're watching it in landscape, it doesn't really matter. It's just great overall. Now, the display when watching 4K HDR video is super bright. So here's my HDR video on YouTube about my iPhone 12 Pro review. And as you can see, it's super bright. Now, listen to the speakers as well, because they're very loud. Just give my overall thoughts on it. Now, this video is in 4K HDR, and if it looks all... And so this particular phone has been my absolute favorite to watch video on and listen to things because the speakers are pretty good. Now, I would say it's much better with AirPods, AirPods Pro, or maybe even the new AirPods Max if you have those, since those aren't out until this coming week. But in general, speakers are great, they're loud, they're clear, and I think that's a win for this phone. Now, as far as its overall size, well, yes, it's a huge phone, and for me, it was even big going from the 11 Pro Max. So if I put my finger around it, I can touch my fingers together, but it's hard to do that. But you really need huge hands in order to do that. And so this is not going to be the right phone for everyone. But for me, size-wise, once I got used to it, I love the huge display on it. I think it's great, and I just think it feels like one of the best phones Apple has ever made. Now, as far as overall connectivity, you'll see I have 5G here with 3 bars. 5G is pretty good in most cases. It just depends where you live, what carrier you have, and what your signal strength is. But let me go into speed test. And so we'll go ahead and hit go. I'm currently on T-Mobile, and we'll give it just a moment here. And let's see what we get. Now, we're kind of in the middle of nowhere. and you'll see I'm getting about 72 down. Now in my office with 1 or 2 bars, I get faster speed. So it really depends where you're located. It doesn't necessarily matter how many bars of service you have. So sometimes I get phenomenal speed and other times I don't. Now, depending where you live, you're going to get the 5G millimeter wave, and that's the antenna here on the side. I don't currently have that through my carrier, so it's not something I use regularly, but that's more line of sight. And still, after using it a month, I don't think 5G is that big of a deal. 4G LTE was almost as fast. In some cases, it's faster. Most of the time, 5G is faster for me, but in general, it's just not that big of a deal, and I think it's not a reason to run out and get this phone. However, connectivity overall has been much better than when using an Intel modem, and the reason I say that is because I haven't dropped a single call. With my iPhone 11 Pro Max, where they were using Intel modems, sometimes the phone calls would just drop. I would have terrible connectivity, and just in general, this seems to be much better. Wi-Fi seems to be about the same. This has Wi-Fi 6, just like any of the other ones, so any of the past iPhones for the past year or so. And so I don't really notice a difference there, but connectivity with phone calls and things seems to be phenomenal. Now, as far as overall speed of use, well, being that it's the latest A14, there's not really ever a slowdown. You can go into whatever you'd like. It's super fast. It's smooth all of the time. And apps don't necessarily reload all of the time. You'll see I just went into YouTube there. It didn't reload. And so if we go into the camera, this will typically cause a reload. We're in the camera, and then we'll go back to, say, YouTube. It's working just fine. So speed and RAM management and overall just use feels like an iPhone. It's super fast, fluid, just like you'd expect. Now the cameras are phenomenal. As you can see, the camera here, I'm actually recording with a 12 Pro camera, which is basically the same in this sort of light. At night you may see a difference, but the cameras are just phenomenal. So we have this regular view, then we can go to wide or zoom. It's hard to go wide when you're actually using the camera, but we can go back out, and now I've switched to ultra wide. So you have all of these options. You can see behind you no problem. Of course, with the 12 Pro Max, you can zoom in a little bit further. So there's zoom. Let me zoom even more. We'll zoom all the way in to 7x when we're using video, or if I switch over to photo, we can zoom even further. So let's zoom in a little bit more to 12x, and you can see it's kind of blurry, but you can see way across there to that dock over there. You can see it now in this camera. So you've got great photo options, again, wide, regular, and zoom, and they're all pretty great. You've got night portraits. It's not something I use a whole lot, but just in general, it's great. The forward-facing camera, again, is quite good. No problems here, and you'll see I'm recording with the 12 Pro, like I said. So it's just a phenomenal camera in general, and I have no complaints whatsoever. It's something you could use for a main YouTube camera without any problems. So now we're back at 1x, and as you can see, it's doing computational photography in the background, or video where the background's not blown out. It's HDR. It looks phenomenal. So just in general, the 12 Pro Max is something I could highly recommend. Yes, it's expensive, and if you have an 11 Pro Max, I don't know that I'd necessarily upgrade, but it is a good upgrade if you want those cameras, if you want microphones that are great, just like the 11 Pro Max, and you want good battery life. So let's take a look at that. So battery life over the past few days has been okay. You'll see I had 3 hours and 4 minutes of screen on time, 1 hour and 59 minutes of screen off time, and I used about 30 to 40% of my battery. So I'm getting 10 to 12 hours of screen on time. I'm hearing the same from others with this phone, and I have no complaints whatsoever when it comes to screen on time overall. So it seems to be really good. Now, as far as MagSafe, I'm not a huge fan of it. I think it's great. It's easy to connect and use your phone when it's charging wirelessly, but the cable did the same thing and charged a little bit faster. I think it points more to a completely cableless future or portless future where we won't have a lightning port, but rather just sort of wireless connectivity or connecting by touching it to a MagSafe connector, for example. So I think that's more in our future than what we have as far as the wireless fast charging. And if you have a wireless charger already, you may want to just stick with that, since that's actually charging at about 7.5 to 10 watts and may preserve your battery a little bit better over time anyway. So I don't think it's great to just rush out and buy MagSafe, since you already have Lightning and you can connect and actually get faster speeds charging that way. So I think it's great that it's there. It's nice that it's an option, but I don't think it's necessarily something you need to run out and buy a phone for. The accessories are nice. I think we'll see more in the future when it comes to that. So that's really all I have to say about the 12 Pro Max. Yes, I highly recommend it. I love it after using it for a month, and I'm going to continue to use it as my main phone. I thought I was going to use the 12 Pro since it was a little bit easier to handle, but I really like the extra screen real estate and the additional battery life that you get with the 12 Pro Max. So I highly recommend this phone if you're looking for an upgrade from, say, a XS Max or a 10 or an 8 or 8 Plus. This is a phenomenal upgrade, and I think you'll enjoy it. Now, as far as the 12 Pro Max and if you should buy one, well, if you don't have one already and you're looking for a way to upgrade from, say, an 8 Plus or something like that, then absolutely I would upgrade. This is by far my favorite phone in a very long time, and I actually really like this blue color. It's almost gray in certain light, so I just like it in general. But let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and of course, if you'd like to get your hands on this wallpaper, I'll link it in the description like I normally do. And if you haven't subscribed already, please subscribe, and if you enjoyed the video, please give it a like. As always, thanks for watching. This is Aaron. I'll see you next time.